Welcome, I'm Rabbi Phil Bressler of Beit Am in Corvallis, Oregon, and this is the daily summary video for the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch Yomi Daily Halacha Learning Project, covering the passage from Siman 113 Seif 8 to Siman 114 Seif 4. You can find links to the Hebrew and English text of this passage and to the calendar of upcoming passages in this video's description. So we'll continue, at least briefly today, our discussion of what happens on Erev Pesach in the daytime. And the Kitzur says that the Mehadrin, the people who do the mitzvah with a certain flair, bake the matzot mitzvah, the matzah that'll be eaten for the sake of the mitzvah at the Passover Seder. They bake them on the afternoon of Erev Pesach. The reason being because that was the time when the Israelites offered their Paschal lamb sacrifices. So if you're going to do that, it's best to do an extra nullification for the crumbs that fall during the preparation of your matzah. And since you're right up against it time-wise, you're past the point by Erev Pesach afternoon, you're past the point where you can possess any chametz. You want to make sure that the runoff water from all the washing that you're going to do every 18 minutes, you want to make sure that all goes right into the ground and gets absorbed there instead of collecting on any sort of stone floor, because that would count as, if it became chametz there, that would count as still being in your possession. So in the next Siman 114, we get into the business of selling chametz. Now, as a general rule, you can't derive benefit from anything as a result of a transgression. So chametz that you possess at any point during Pesach, it's forbidden to you forever. Not only during Pesach, but ever after as well. Also, as a general rule, performing mitzvot isn't supposed to involve incurring a significant financial loss. Some folks own a great deal of chametz, more than they can ever actually consume, and that would be a huge loss for them to have to either destroy or to have become forbidden. They want to be able to basically pass their chametz through Pesach and get it back on the other side. A tavern owner, for example, who owns big kegs of beer, doesn't want to lose all that over Pesach. So the solution, which is really a legal fiction, a workaround, is to sell it to a non-Jew. And this is a delicate and interesting loophole, and it helps hold both of those values in tension, that you can't benefit from transgression, and also that you don't want to take a big loss. So it has to be a real sale, and you have to be businesslike about it. You have to mean it when you sell it, and you have to take meaningful steps to complete that sale. But at the same time, the understanding is that you'll get it back afterwards. So how do you ensure that this happens without just making it a pretend fictional sale? Well, I think your non-Jewish business partner has to get it. I've never set up this kind of sale myself, but I imagine there has to be some sort of discussion and going over of the procedure so that your non-Jewish business partner is on board. Now, it works best if the non-Jew doesn't actually pay you for the chametz, and then after Pesach you can come and demand payment, learning then that the non-Jew has no money and has to resell the chametz back to you. And I think this actually works best at scale. I've always wondered how Chabad pulls it off in the United States, or I understand there's one Arab guy who buys all the chametz from every Jew in Israel. For just the chametz in my house alone, it's not worth that much. So it's pretty implausible that my non-Jewish business partner would be unable to afford to actually pay for it. But at a huge scale, like buying all the chametz in Israel, apparently the guy makes a down payment, making it a real sale, but the contract says that he has to come up with like $300 million to complete the sale and actually buy all the chametz in Israel by the end of Pesach. And of course he never does, and all the Jews' chametz gets returned to them. So back to how this actually works. It's best if the chametz gets taken off of your property by the non-Jew, but if it does stay in the Jew's home, the room where it sits has to be rented out as well. And this is actually another way to pull off the sale. Rent the room where the chametz is to the non-Jew, and then everything that's inside it goes and becomes theirs as well. This actually also hopefully gets around the issue of kinyan, which is the halachic act of acquisition. Usually there has to be an actual physical act, a lifting or taking possession of. But this is called kinyan agav. It's stuff goes along with the room that's sold, even though they're not actually physically taking it. As part of the sale, it's important to write everything out, be explicit. You got to make sure the buyer of the chametz has access. either by giving them the key or stipulating that you'll deliver the key upon request. In Seif 3, there's interestingly some wiggle room in case there isn't actually a 100% trusting relationship here. You can add an additional lock on the room if you get worried that they're going to come and damage the chametz. It does have to still be fully accessible at the time of the sale, or else the chametz will be not truly sold. It'll be in your possession and it'll become forbidden post-Pesach. If you can't rent out the whole room, say because you need to use a part of it, you can partition off the part that's to be rented and use the other part. And if access to the room that you're renting out can only happen through your property, say it's an interior room, you have to write what they call an easement into the contract, allowing access and allowing the buyer who may want to access their chametz to pass through your property to get to it. So that's all for today. As always, our learning is dedicated to Rabbi Shlomo Gansfried, the author of the Kitzur, and the historic Jewish community of Uzhhorod, Ukraine. See you tomorrow.